In my previous video, I talked about You, diving into various aspects of the show for the purpose of explaining why I thought Season 5 was such a disappointment. One of the things I touched on is the fact that I've never taken the murder aspect of the show all that seriously, because I view it as satirical. While most who watched my last video seemed to take no issue with the analysis I gave, as I suspected might happen, I did get a small amount of vociferous pushback, which gave me pause for thought because You explores some heavy topics and I wondered if perhaps I'd been too cavalier in how I discussed them. I'm open to that possibility, but currently I'm not convinced, and I've now discovered I'm in company because plenty of other people are fond of the show, but like me, simply don't take it very seriously as a piece of commentary on real-world violence and psychological pathology. And I'm going to expand on all that now. On the surface, it may seem like You has a lot to say about sensitive real-world issues, such as stalking, misogyny, violence, abuse, and murder. All those things are what the show centres its storytelling around after all. The protagonist, Joe Goldberg, is a manipulative type who stalks women he's infatuated with and murders people. The tone is dark and often intense, and there's a significant amount of time dedicated to the consequences of Joe's criminal behaviour. So one could be forgiven for thinking the show is trying to give a deep examination on these topics to really make us understand them better and enable social change by influencing culture. But no, I don't think that's the case. As I discussed in my previous video, You presents a heightened reality with exaggerated, often preposterous events taking place. It's full of dark humour and uses genre mashup techniques, which signal a self-awareness of the fun that's being had with the story. Music cues, cinematography, and types of conversations characters have are used to frame sections of episodes as being like parts of romance films or rom-coms, while other sections use the techniques of character drama and others of horror. Having the show's murderous sociopathic protagonist narrate about his romantic sentimentality with genre cues to frame him in romance film or rom-com-like situations is inherently funny. In Season 2, Joe falls for love, a girl who turns out to be an even worse sociopath than him. More unstable, more murderous. They marry and move to the suburbs for Season 3, then to have marital strife caused by, among numerous things, love committing more murder, while Joe wants to leave such criminal activity in the past. There's a lot of really compelling drama in all this, but also a lot of dark comedy, because that situation is inherently absurd. With all this, as I've mentioned already, to me the show comes across as satirical, with the murder aspect taking the place of metaphor for other more mundane struggles. That's why, right from the start of the show, one of the reasons I've enjoyed it is because it's fun, rather than because of any realistic take it gives on serial killers. I decided to investigate what critics have said about You, and it turns out there's no shortage of reviews out there that give similar arguments to those I've made. Some reviews describe the show as a guilty pleasure, and I think that's a good way to put it. Many of us have fun watching this dark story about a charming serial killer, knowing we shouldn't like him, but unable to avoid falling prey to his charm. This review in The Guardian reflects the way I interpret the show quite well, and it makes a lot of my arguments for me, so I'm going to read it. It's titled You Final Season Review, an insultingly rubbish ending. Penn Badgley's sexy serial killer story was once ludicrously fun, but despite plenty of fan-pleasing cameos and a propulsive twist, the show's sign-off is so bad that it's offensive. You, in which a serial killer and stalker of women, but a sexy one, is somehow fashioned into the hero of the piece, is a fundamentally preposterous show. Perhaps most preposterous of all is that it has stretched the story over 5 seasons. You used to be fun, at least. A guilty-ish pleasure, aware of its own over-the-top silliness that once gave the impression of knowing that it wasn't so much pushing at the edges of credulity as body-barging it into an abyss. But as the seasons have ticked away, the satire has seeped out, leaving a mess of its own making that it tries, and inevitably struggles, to clear up. The main problem is that Joe Goldberg is both the hero and the villain. In this final, and that really is a mercy, I think that's a bit harsh, season, You falls back on its old habit of not knowing which it would prefer to be. Joe is now married to billionaire and philanthropist Kate Lockwood, living in New York with her and with his newly returned son Henry. He is no longer pretending to be dead and another person. Instead, he is a public figure, hiding from his many misdeeds in plain sight. This feels like a necessary shift. The old pattern of Joe falling for a new woman, stalking her, finding that love isn't quite the romantic image in his mind, then realising that he simply must violently murder her, was growing old. The idea that he can finally be himself, literally, as a celebrity, and with Kate in that he can be more open about his dexterish tendencies, drives the early part of the season. Joe presents himself as a good guy, expressing how fine it feels to rid the world of assholes. This is a contrivance the show has had to build in, to counter the fundamental ickiness of its premise. You is going back to the beginning for its finale, and not just because it returns Joe to New York City and his creepy murder cage in the basement. There is a hint that it has regained the focus of the first season, and reminded itself that it is supposed to be a satire. Initially, in Joe's fame and Kate's attempts to atone for her own sins, its dark humour is aimed at the ultra-rich. Anna Camp puts in an extra shift as Kate's twin siblings, Reagan and Maddie. With them, You occasionally finds fun mode again, somewhere between corpse and corpse. Solid joke. But largely, it plods towards the end through a series of increasingly convoluted and repetitive plot twists that are silly even by You's standards. There is talk of misogyny, of Joe's delusional tendencies, and it even brings up incels and online mobs, though You-ishly it merely glances at that world, rather than addressing it in any meaningful way. Shining a light on the central tangle, is Joe a white knight or an abuser of women, doesn't disguise the fact that it remains a real issue that you have to ask the question in the first place. You was always going to find it difficult to square its love of Joe with his flaws. It is never clear whether it really wants him to get his comeuppance, or if that is a tedious obligation it must fulfill. The early seasons were daft and twisty enough to rush you through in the hope that you might not notice their shaky foundations, but as it signs off forever, You has no choice but to deal with Joe. It does so with a final scene that manages to be borderline insulting to the viewers who have stuck with it. It's not You, but You, it suggests, that is the problem. Ironically, for a final season all about elites, I found that a bit rich. Haha, another funny little joke. Anyway, there are a few things in that I disagree with. For example, I think the fact that Joe has simultaneously been the hero and the villain of You is a strength, not a weakness. It's one of the things that makes the show so unique, compelling, and makes one conflicted about the protagonist. It's why Joe is an interesting character. But overall, I think that review gives a largely accurate assessment, and sums up my interpretation of You fairly well. To conclude, I'm a big fan of You. I think it's a great show with a complex, interesting protagonist and some very compelling drama. However, I just don't take it as seriously as I've now learnt some people do. To me, it's a fun genre mashup, a bingeable serial killer soap opera. It's good entertainment, but it's not some deep social commentary on gender relations and real criminal pathology. The majority of the show's depth comes from other places, like the way in which Joe is made to be so three-dimensional within the confines of his fairly absurd fictional world. So maybe some people have been taking You too seriously, or maybe not. Maybe I'm not taking it seriously enough. I'm open to that possibility, so if you think I'm missing something about the show's subtext, do feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll be receptive to such arguments. What do you think? Do you agree with the points I've made here, and the points in the article I read? Or do you have counter-arguments to send my way? Let me know in the comments below. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe for more. Thanks for watching, see you next time.